Please, YouTube, can I do a stream? Please let me stream. Please don't ban me, YouTube. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back. Whoa, hey. I don't want to hear myself there. Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the weekly narrative live stream. I'm trying not to let the mic block too much of my face. It is the 28th of January, and it's been 2 weeks since the last live stream because you guys got a gift last week. You were gifted with not one, but two videos from me. 2 videos, one from the Women's March in Reno and one from Sacramento for the Black Lives Matter / MLK March. I had a hard time leaving. It's already been a year since that last one that I put up. And I can tell you guys right now, I know for sure the Women's March is getting more attention this year than it is last year. Not just in the news, mainstream media, but also on YouTube, because not only am I getting way more views on this video, but everyone who's making Women's March videos is getting tons of views. So I don't know if it's just the genre of the, I don't even know what you call people who go out and go to protests and talk to people. Journalists? I don't know if you can call it journalists. A lot of them are just going out there to troll people and debate and whatnot. But every single one that I've seen, even the guys that only have like 1,000 subscribers, when they do a Women's March video from 2019, slamming tens of thousands of views. So that's good. Everyone is aware of the Women's March and how retarded it is. Because it is retarded. Let's be honest. I do want to talk about that a little bit. I'm not going to talk about the Covington stuff. I'm not going to talk about what was that other big news item? The shutdown. And I'm not going to talk about Gillette, because all 3 of those, I think, are, well, the shutdown more so than the other 2, just kind of a distraction. Gillette, you already know what I'm going to say, and I already talked about Gillette in that other video. That was 2 weeks ago already? Wow. So the Women's March. It kind of blew my mind, actually. Now, if you haven't seen my video, I went to Reno, and I basically asked women 2 questions. I asked, why are you marching? And then I asked, what is the biggest issue that women have to face in America today? And I was expecting to get some creative answers, at least get something creative, interesting. I was surprised, but not in a good way, because I talked to probably, I don't know, 10, 12, somewhere around there, people. The conversations were a lot longer than you saw in the video, because we talked about a bunch of other stuff, but I wanted to get the general theme of just that one question. I wanted to get everyone's answer to just that one question in the video. And everyone kept saying the same thing. I heard it once. The first chick I talked to, the one with the beanie and the orange jacket, she's like, probably that people just think we're a bitch. And I was like, okay, it's kind of weak, but all right, whatever. You know, I can kind of see that. She kind of had that kind of energy anyway. Next person, we're not taken very seriously. And so on and so forth. It kept happening. And then I talked to the guy. I talked to this Hispanic guy. He says, well, when women say something, people have questions. It's like, and I was wondering if this was, is it just that it's taking this long for them to start to adapt to the workplace? And then I was reminded of that question that Jordan Peterson brought up, or I guess this question that was kind of thrust upon him. I don't know which way it went, but essentially, due to the interview that he had with someone from Vice, I think it was, or some other trash media outlet, essentially the question was, can women even work with men? Now, I'm going to reserve my judgment on that question. So still, I'm going to hold that back. But the question does come up in your head. Because you look at this, women in the workplace, and they say things like, my boss won't let me talk, or people talk over me at meetings, or nobody takes me seriously. And what I should have asked people, this is the problem with making these videos, is that I have to go back and I have to edit these, chop them up, and then basically rewatch them like 50 times over as I'm editing them and putting the clips together. So I keep seeing instances of where I should have asked a certain question. I should have said this. I should have said that. I should have done this. And I wanted to ask, when all these people said, well, nobody takes me seriously in the workplace and all this. Well, how do you know that's attributable to your gender? That's what I wanted to ask, and I should have asked, but it's hard to calibrate the level of conflict that you can present in a conversation when you're at these events, because you will get kicked out immediately. And I'm not just talking about rabid, foaming at the mouth Nazis who wants to kick you out. I'm talking about people who have permits for the event. They'll just ask you to leave. So, if I say just the one wrong thing to one wrong person, they're going to go around and alert the authorities, and, fox in the hen house kind of situation. So I didn't ask that kind of question. But, I do want to know, why did these women think that it's their gender that's causing these occurrences in their workplace? Because this kind of stuff happens to men. Everything that they said happens to men also. But this is the problem. This is the big problem with trying to convince people that they're oppressed, because they start to believe it. Okay, this is the same argument that I make for Black Lives Matter and the black racial inequality, same situation, same exact thing. These parents, most of them single parents, are going to raise their kids telling their kids, teaching them to believe that the system is against them, the same way that these women thought or think that their workplace is against them because of what they've been told in the media over and over and over and over. They've been told that, no, your workplace, your wage gap and this and that. My wage gap, which doesn't exist. But they're told over and over and over that they are treated differently because they're women, even though they're not. So they start to internalize that. They believe it. And then when these bad things happen, they automatically attribute those bad things to that cause. So not only does it make you more closed-minded, it's hurting you in that aspect. It's harmful to have these beliefs. And that's the most ironic thing about this whole situation. That's not the white people. It's not the white supremacists who are doing more damage to the black kids. It's not the misogynists who are doing more damage to the women. It's their own people who are convincing themselves that they are oppressed and that they are the victims of this system. If you could quantify the amount of damage that mainstream media narratives, anti-women narratives, or the pro-misogyny narratives, I guess we'll say. And when I say pro-misogyny, I mean, let's talk about misogyny all day, every day, because it's a real thing, but it's not really. But just a belief that gets ingrained in your head. That does more damage than guys going out and just doing misogyny on women. I don't even know what that entails. Catcalling? I mean, the definition of misogyny is so huge, large, all-encompassing now, because you have to make it big for the victim status to remain, because we're not just like chaining women to the kitchens and making them make sandwiches all day. So what does misogyny mean? What does racism mean? Racism means I point out a statistic that looks unfavorable to another race, sexism, as you saw in the video in Reno. This old lady called me a sexist because I pointed out a statistic that, well, maybe she wasn't calling me sexist, but she was pointing out my sexist fact that more men work on oil rigs. So the definition of sexism has the definition is widened to the point to where just stating a fact that they don't like is sexism or racism or misogyny. And that's harmful, because then people believe, these women believe, that everywhere they go they're being victimized, even though in reality, according to every statistic available, this is the best, the safest time in history for them to exist. No class and group of women have ever had it better in the history of humanity than the women today, and they still find a reason to go out and march. That's mind-blowing. That is, you're witnessing actual oppression. That is actual oppression, mental oppression. They're oppressing their minds into thinking that they have these chains around them. You ever seen that picture of the elephant with the rope around his foot? Let me see if I can pull this up here. This is what they're doing. Yeah. This is what they're doing to the women and the black people in this country, okay? They have power. They're an individual. They have the power. They're very powerful. They're intelligent. You know, they have capabilities. They have potential, okay? But then you have this little mainstream media rope right here that they're putting around them. They're making them think. And now look, this elephant thinks that he can't go anywhere. He's convinced that he gets catcalled, or he's convinced that he gets shot down at work because he's a woman. He's a female elephant, so none of his ideas are good. And he gets talked over in meetings because he's a female elephant. But in reality, that's not the case. So take away this rope, you know, of the fake mindset of being oppressed, and then what do you have? Where's the real oppression? Where's the real oppression? And according to the women themselves, okay, because the answer that I got when I asked them what is the worst problem, they said this. They said the stick with the little string around my ankle is the worst problem in my life. That's what they said, figuratively. They didn't say I'm being hunted. People can kill me without repercussion. People can rape me without repercussions. There's laws that say that I have to earn less than men. There's, inequality built into the law. There's inequality built into the policies of companies that I work at. Nothing like that. Nothing real. Okay. So, in a way, are they oppressed? Yes, they are, but they're not oppressed by the things that they think they're oppressed by. They're actually oppressed by the people who are trying to tell them that they're oppressed by something else. And the funny thing is that you know that they haven't ever stopped and thought about it for just 1 minute. Just stop everything you're doing. Stop looking at the computer. Stop looking at the TV. Stop looking at your phone. Just lay down on the couch with the lights off and just think with your brain for a minute. What is how do I feel oppressed? Where am I getting more negative energy and more negative impact on my actual well-being? Is it the people who are constantly telling me that I'm oppressed? Or is there somebody actually oppressing me? Which one is causing more emotional damage, more actual damage? And you would think that they could figure that out pretty easily, but I guess humans aren't as smart as we like to think we are. That is my conclusion that I got from visiting these two marches. last week. Humans are not smart. They run around oppressing themselves, claiming to be oppressed by other people. It's fascinating, actually. It's really fascinating to see that. Because, as I already said, this is the best time and place in history for women to exist, and they still think they're oppressed. It's like, there's a law against unequal pay, right? Like you said, wage gap, but there's a law against that. You know when you say systemic inequality, you know what that means, right? That means it's built into the system. Well, we have systemic equality. That's built into the system, systemic equality. You can't pay a woman less than a man. So unless you can come up with a better example of a counter to that, you have a giant mountain to overcome, a giant mountain of facts and systemic equality to overcome if you want to claim you're oppressed. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I enjoyed making it. And we'll be back, like I said in the video. I'm going to go back next year if they're still there. I got a great idea for next year. So this is what I'm going to do next year at the Women's March. I'm going to get a table. And I'm going to bring a poster board, one of those trifold poster boards, and we're going to print out a bunch of employment statistics. And we're going to bring job applications. I'm going to bring job applications for oil rig workers, manual laborers on oil rigs. Because they make, I don't know if you knew this or not, the reason I kept using that as an example in my video was because they make a ton of money. I'm talking like 6 figures, okay? But you never see a woman doing it. And why is that? Well, because they don't want to do it. And that's perfectly fine with me. That's just the hypocrisy that I'm trying to point out. If you want to overcome this earnings gap, take the hard jobs like the men want to do, close that gap. It's up to you. You can do it if you want. So I'm going to bring job applications, and I'm going to inform people about the workplace statistics, like men being 90+% of the workplace deaths, men having like shorter lifespans, and show some charts like the ratio of men to women nurses, all that kind of stuff, and show people where the actual real inequality lies. Because if men wanted to do their own version of that march and say, hey, look at all this inequality we have to deal with, they would have, the statistics would actually be on their side. Women make more than men out of college. Women make more than men between ages 20 and 30 if they don't have kids. Women are graduating college and attending college at like a 3-to-2 ratio now. It's like 60-40% female to men in college. I mean, the statistics, they just go on and on. There's plenty of statistics you can cite to show inequality between women and men. But no man complains. That's what makes us men. We don't bitch and whine about everything like that. We just do it. We feel a sense of duty to support family, whatever it is, and then we just go out and do it. We don't whine and cry and hold signs and march around with stupid hats on our heads. So that's going to be fun. I'm going to bring a table. We'll do all that next year, and hopefully, because I got to switch it up. I got to keep moving forward, keep adapting, doing something new every time. So anyway, as the title of the video states, this really is your center for toxic masculinity. Now, this is the live stream on my new channel, so there's not a lot of viewers on the live stream because nobody's moved over yet. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a dry run through a video that I'm going to make about my top 10 movies that display toxic masculinity, because I think it's two things. I think it's important, number one, that we don't lose sight of what masculinity really is, and number two, it's going to get to the point to where these movies are going to be like censored, okay? And we're not going to be able to even watch these movies. They're not going to be on streaming platforms. They're not going to be on YouTube. They're definitely not going to be on Netflix. I mean, Netflix is probably going to post some child porn next year or something like that. So we need to remind ourselves, and you'll see it that my list, it's mostly older movies, because as the movies get newer and newer, you get more social justice built into them, more femininity, and just not good examples. That's why the guys are so soft and pathetic these days, because they're looking at the examples of what they're supposed to be from the media, from the movies, from whatever it is, and they're emulating that. They're emulating all these soy boys from romantic comedies. They're emulating I don't even know. I've literally watched like 3 movies in the theater in the last 2 years because they're so terrible. It's sequels of the same series over and over and over, recycled with some trash social justice ideas thrown in to spice it up to make it marketable. Ghostbusters, for example. It's not even... The point of the movie isn't even to make good movies anymore. The point of the movies is to push it's a vehicle for your ideology now. It's like they've ruined movies. They're trying to ruin movies. And we're going to bring that back. This is my list. And we're going to go through it right now. We're going to go through each movie. And then I'm going to list the tenets of toxic masculinity that each movie has a theme of within it. And then we'll do a little analysis, and then we'll rate each movie toxicity level. And then I'm going to get some feedback from the audience. And then we'll try to refine the list so that when I make the video, it'll be good and solid. Because I got like 13 movies, and I want to narrow it down to 10. And the point of this is to remind you of what the actual principles of masculinity are, okay? And to give you a visual story example that you can go and look at and watch and learn and say like, oh, okay, so that's what men are supposed to do. All right, so number 1 on my list, and this is my list, not top 10. Okay, so these are like some of my favorite movies. Okay, Blade Runner, number 1. And really, you could use the original, but I'm talking about Blade Runner 2049. So I'm going to try to do this with as little of spoilers as possible. This movie came out like 2 years ago. It's my favorite movie of all time. Number 1, best movie ever. Sci-fi masterpiece, visual masterpiece. The main character is essentially in a battle to try and discover whether or not he's actually human, okay? So, and if you've seen this movie, it's got Ryan Gosling. The star is Ryan Gosling, and he's kind of famous for, if you've seen Drive, also, he plays almost like the same character. He just doesn't really talk, and he's very stoic. So, man of action, few words, stoicism. Okay, that's the first principle out of Blade Runner that really has gone out the window. Today, men are not stoic at all. They give in to their emotions because the platforms of communication, Twitter, social media, and everything, they encourage that. And communication methods of, feminist communication methods, being open with your emotions and not holding back, just letting it all out, that is not masculine at all. So watch Blade Runner 2049 and see how he reacts to like jarring situations and deep emotional questions, and try and emulate that stoicism and purpose. Okay, every man needs to have a purpose. His purpose is to discover the truth of his origin. And that's the whole movie, is he's trying to chase this purpose. He doesn't let anything get in the way. Okay, there's no like romantic interest that he gives up everything for. Nothing like that. He stays on his purpose. Okay, and truth. Every man needs to seek truth, and that's what he does. Because he could go with the comfortable lie. You could give in to the comfortable lie and say, I want to believe this. It sounds good. It feels better. But I need to know the truth. And that may hurt more. That may be uncomfortable. But I need to chase that. Okay. So stoicism, purpose, and truth. Blade Runner 2049. Number 2, Heat. Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. Okay. It's like 1994, I think this was. Oh my God. This movie is a masterpiece of masculinity. So the premise of this movie is you have a detective and a master criminal in a game of cat and mouse. Okay, they're both experts at what they do, and so essentially they're planning these big heists, and then Al Pacino's trying to catch them or get one step ahead of him. So The tenets, the principles of masculinity in this movie are competition, risk, respect, and sacrifice. Okay, respect comes from the fact that there's a certain point in the movie where they meet, okay, and Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, they meet and they know exactly who each other are, what their roles are. They know, he knows he's a cop, he knows he's the criminal, and they have an interaction that's like they're friends that have been away from each other for a long time. Like they get along, right? They understand each other and they respect each other, even though they're on different sides of an ideology of the coin. Okay, so it's kind of the same thing that I try to do. I just approach people who have different ideas from me with respect, regardless. Competition. Men need to be competitive. Okay, none of this trophies for everyone. There is a winner, there is a loser in life. There always will be. And this movie embodies the spirit of competition because, like I said, it's a cat and mouse game of the detective chasing the criminal, chasing Al Pacino, chasing Robert De Niro, and Robert De Niro trying to outrun Al Pacino. Sacrifice. So Robert De Niro has a line in the movie which is one of like the best lines of any movie ever made, and a lot of people don't follow this, and it goes something, I don't know the exact line, it's something along the lines of don't commit to anything you're not willing to walk away from in 30 seconds or something like that. Okay, and this manifests itself towards the end of the movie when he gets like a love interest and Al Pacino intersects with that, and Al Pacino is chasing him. He decides to leave that chick that he's like fallen in love with immediately and just bolts and runs off. Okay, they're about to fly off into the sunset, literally, and he gives up at the last second. So sometimes you do have to sacrifice, okay, and don't fall for that one-itis. He almost fell for the one-itis baloney, and which would have got him caught. He would have went to jail, and he would have gotten her in trouble too. So that's the thing. You have to be willing to sacrifice. Plus, there's just a lot of guns, loud noises, and a lot of other good actors that are badasses. List of my top 10 toxic masculine movies. Number 3, Conan the Barbarian. This is just the raw physicality, violence, brutality, physicality, and the main principle is toughness and pain, enduring pain and toughness. Okay, because the whole premise of Conan, the reason why he's so huge is because his parents were killed when he was a kid, and he was taken as a slave, essentially a slave. And this evil warlock guy makes him push or walk on a wheel of pain. Okay, a wheel of pain is essentially just a giant, I don't even know what you call it. It's a wheel of pain. You turn it. It's like a stone in the middle that turns, and it's got a big log on the end of it, and you just push it, and you go around in a circle. That's it. For years and years, you just push this thing, and you're in pain and agony, and you're in the desert, and you're dehydrated, and you're blistered out, and your skin is just like hardening. But it's making you tougher. That's the whole point. Toughness comes from enduring pain. You have to go through pain to get to that level of toughness, to be able to withstand tough situations, to withstand adversity. And that's the most badass part about Conan, is he becomes the conqueror after enduring years and years and years of pain. Okay, so you have to go through that. Every man has to go through that, and glory, because he's fighting to be the best and to conquer. That's really what it is. Every man needs to have achieve glory somehow in his life, whether that's, just on a small scale, something you achieve. You become the CEO of a company, you have a great family, whatever it is. You need to have glory somehow. Number 4, top 10 masculine movies. Number 4, The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing, 1982. This movie has no women in it. 0. Not one female Zero females in the whole entire movie. Okay, that's kind of rare. And it's a horror movie. Not only is it just a horror movie, it's in my opinion, the best horror movie of all time. So just watching it, the act of just watching it, especially if you're a kid, like if you're 12 years old, the first time you see it, like I was, that's like a rite of passage into becoming a man just in itself. But the movie's all about an isolated research station in the middle of Antarctica, okay? And it's just got like 12 guys who are working at this research station. They're isolated, okay? Completely isolated from anything. And this alien invades their camp, and it can mimic or take over the bodies of the other guys. So there's no really way to tell who could potentially be the thing or not. So the principles in this movie that are masculine are the survival of the fittest. Okay, because not only is the thing trying to survive by adapting to the situation and taking over the men and trying to be, sneaky and survive because it knows that they want to kill it. But also, the men know that it's trying to kill them and it's trying to take over them. And if it could, it wants to get to mainland society, and take over everyone. Right? So it's a battle between the men and the thing to survive, essentially. Who can adapt to the situation and survive? Willpower, because you are isolated, completely isolated, and you have nowhere to go, and you have no certainty at all in your life. You don't know who's who. You can't trust anyone. These guys don't trust each other. So you have to be willing, and not everyone has the willpower. There's a guy in the movie that does kill himself because he just can't handle it. You can't, the fear and the uncertainty, and it can get to you. So the one guy does kill himself, but everyone else, they have the willpower to survive all the way to the end until they're literally about to freeze in the Arctic. They live. That's a good one, actually, Echo. But it's been so long since I've seen that one, I can't remember any of the actual underlying like narratives in that one. But that's also a John Carpenter movie, I think, isn't it? And the final principle in the thing is hierarchies. Okay, so masculine principle of hierarchies, because men do have to arrange themselves in hierarchies based on what usually physicality. Okay, so the lobsters wrestle each other, and the space lobsters take over the men. But also within the camp, the guys don't trust each other, but they have a hierarchy of order within the camp. So you have like the head camp guy, lieutenant or whatever. He's got he's got his own gun. He has command over these two guys, and those two guys have command over everyone else. There's a hierarchy of order there that everyone follows, even in the chaos as they're trying to figure out what's going on. They still, to a large degree, up until I think towards the very end, the leader cedes his gun to a different person. So they maintain the hierarchy even through chaos, and that's part of the reason how they get through it. Or maybe they don't. You have to go watch. All right. Masculine movies number 5. Ocean's 11. I know what you're thinking. This isn't that masculine. It's got, George Clooney's got one-itis in this movie, and he's just chasing a girl, and it's all about getting the girl and this and that. All right, understand. It's going to knock down the toxicity level, toxic masculinity rating for that. It does get knocked down a little bit because of that one-itis. He's chasing his one-itis. But there are some other good lessons to learn from Ocean's 11 that men need to realize and incorporate into their lives. So the first principle of masculinity in Ocean's 11 is competence. Okay, competence comes from mastering something that you enjoy doing, preferably, but becoming really, really good at one particular thing, or maybe 2 or 3. Because the whole premise of Ocean's 11 is that Danny Ocean, assembles a team of elite, not even thieves. They're not all thieves. They're just individuals with very specific, highly specialized skills that they're very, very good at. So you got like the tech guy, the hacker, the pickpocket, the impersonator, And there's like 8 other ones, the grease monkey, stuff like that. So, and every single one of them represents a high level of competency that is a part of a larger operating machine. Okay, so it's kind of symbolic of a society. To having a working society, you have to have a compilation of people who are competent at a lot of different things. Principle number 2 of masculinity in Ocean's 11 is responsibility. Okay, but because not only do each of those individual 11 people have a massive amount of competence in their particular field, but they have a huge amount of responsibility because they're planning these heists to the T, right? They're every single little detail of these. That's the whole premise of Ocean's 11. If you haven't seen it, is they plan big heists. They literally steal money out of a bank vault or a casino vault. So if any one of those men does one thing wrong, the whole thing is gone. And they're responsible for that. You have to be responsible for your portion of the work. You have to be responsible for, what you say you're going to come forward and do. You have to deliver. If you can't deliver, then, you don't have the responsibility. And yeah, Ocean's 11 is all men. So that's also a good part. That's not why I thought of it, but that's pretty toxic when you think about it, because excluding women. But like I said, Danny Ocean, the whole premise of the movie is he's stealing the money to get the girl. So the one-itis makes it a little less toxic. Toxic masculine movies. Number 6, Mad Max Fury Road. Now, not only are these movies that I'm recommending really good for masculine role models and masculine principles, they're just good movies overall, by the way. So if you haven't seen these, I have a poster of Mad Max Fury Road up on the wall behind me. So the principles of masculinity in Mad Max Fury Road are adaptation. Number 1, adaptation. Okay, because the whole setting of the world of Mad Max is a post-apocalyptic world where nukes have gone off, society has been destroyed, and essentially you've been whittled down to smaller communities of people who have each learned to survive based on the specific amount of the specific type of resource that they were given. So this is presumably somewhere in Australia, and you have these 4 different communities. One of them has access to water. One of them has access to oil. One of them has access to gunpowder, I think it was. And then each of these communities, they are kind of symbiotic on each other. They trade to survive, and they adapt based on what they're given. They adapt to a harsh world where there's literally not even any trees. There's no greenery. There's nothing. It's just a desolation. Okay, but even a guy just like Mad Max can adapt. One single guy. He's adapted and survived. Adaptation. Every guy needs to know how to adapt to new situations, okay? Move to a different state on a whim. Can you do it? Can you deal with large changes like that on a whim? I think you should be able to. Principle number 2, industriousness. Okay, every man needs to be productive. This is why they say don't retire. Like once you retire, you die, and literally guys die like shortly after they retire because they get bored, they get heart disease, whatever. They're not active, they get depressed. Guys need to stay active and industrious. They need to create things. They need to do stuff with their hands. They need to be physical. And as I was mentioning earlier, that's the whole reason they're able to survive in this movie, because they're industrious. Communities create oil and gas. They create bullets to serve for war. They drill for water. They farm human milk, stuff like that. They have to be industrious to survive and trade. And it's kind of related, but survival, that's kind of related to adaptation. You need to be able to could you go out into the wilderness for just like a week and survive with no food? I don't even know if I could. If I had like a manual or something of what not to eat, poison berries maybe, eat some toxic mushrooms or something. And for extra toxicity, I threw in patriarchy, because each one of those communities is run by men, and women are like subservient in that movie. They're actually used to like so they can't really have children, but they're the main antagonist has like a harem of women that he uses to try and create children, and he farms them for human milk, literally. Fat chicks. Toxic masculinity movie number 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Scarface. Scarface. Of course, Scarface had to be on this list, right? Because it's the embodiment of ambition, which is the principle number 1 that you're going to see in this movie. You get a large sense of ambition by watching this. You want to go out and you literally want to just conquer the world after you watch Scarface, because it's a story of a guy, a poor Cuban, I think he's Cuban, coming to America, and he gets wrapped up in drug dealing. But, you know, it's not the most savory trade, but he does end up owning a mansion and controlling a lot of people, controlling a lot of resources. That's what he wanted to do, okay? Don't judge him for making a terrible decision as to his line of work, but you got to give credit to the guy. He had ambition and he made it work, okay? He took the risks necessary. He saw that anything was possible, and he did that. He didn't let anything hold him back. So principle number 1 from Scarface, ambition. Every guy needs to have that, because you're just going to be, what, you're going to sit around and play video games all day and watch Netflix? Man, I'll tell you, the most boring stuff that I see when I'm talking to people, or I'm looking on like dating apps or whatever it is, and people they brag about the fact that they like binge watch Netflix. I'm like, what? I don't understand. Is this cool now to do this? Because that's not cool to me. If I watch an hour of Netflix, I feel like a lazy bum. I don't even have Netflix anymore. Mon Ra, what's up, man? Welcome to the chat. 3 people here. Yeah, dude, we got jam-packed up in the chat. So we're going over my top 10 toxic masculine movies that you can watch and learn the principles of masculinity from. Because I think we need to recharge. We need to re-examine, just a re-up refresher after the past couple weeks. You know what I mean? So Scarface, principle of masculinity number 2, loyalty. That's a huge theme in this movie, and it's something that we're kind of losing in real life, it seems like, because to not be friends or acquaintances with somebody anymore, all that entails is not messaging them back on whatever platform you're using, or unfriending them. It's so easy to just drop someone out of your life now. It's rare to have partnerships or friendships with other men that persist through time. And that's one of the big themes of this movie. He's like, are you loyal to me? Because he's got his buddy, I forgot what his name is, but Al Pacino's got his like best friend that he came over with, and they have some kind of questions about loyalty and, you know, who's selling drugs for who throughout the movie, and, you know, maybe Al Pacino's loyalty is questionable at certain points. So that's a big theme that you need to consider as well. That's part of being a man, is you got to have loyalty to your family, to your spouse, your own ambition. Oh, that links right back to the other principle in this movie. You have to be loyal to your ambitions. You can't just give up on a whim. Toxic masculine movies number 8. This is the 3rd one with Al Pacino, by the way. Something that's gonna say something about Al Pacino, which I don't think Al Pacino's opened his mouth and gotten all political like punchy De Niro has he? I don't think so. So maybe Al Pacino actually is masculine. The Godfather. And the toxic principle of masculinity that you can get out of this movie, this series, because it's a 3-part series, is family. Family is key. It's king, okay? Like everything you do, all these other principles should be centered around family. Like that's why you're stoic. That's why you survive. That's why you adapt. That's why you have competence and responsibility. That's because you have to be able to create and maintain and grow a family. And that's the whole theme of The Godfather. It's the story of a son who takes over his family's business and argues with, fights with, but ultimately tries to preserve and bring up his family. And it's aside from the killings and all the other gang or mafia, whatever you want to call it, related debauchery, there's a lot of lessons to learn there about family, loyalty, and maintaining a bloodline, and the importance of tradition and history of your own people. And that's lost now. People don't have traditions anymore. I've noticed that with this last holiday season. I don't know if it's just because the amount of people that I interact with is a lot lower now, but nobody. I ask people, I'm like, what kind of traditions do you have? What you do with your family on the holidays? And they're like, no, I don't know, we go to the movies, or there's nothing. I feel grateful in that I still have a lot of traditions with my family, mostly centered around food, unfortunately. But that's important. You got to maintain and create traditions with your family. So that's The Godfather. And then Toxic Masculine movie number 9, There Will Be Blood. Now, if you've seen this movie, you already know what I'm talking about. So Daniel Day-Lewis, I think he won an Oscar for his role in this movie. He plays an oil tycoon, essentially this guy who just wants to go out west. I think it's west, and strike it rich. He spends his time searching for and creating an oil, I guess you could say, empire. That was the word I was looking for. And the theme of the movie is competition, but this is a beefed up level of competition, because this guy is so tenacious that I had to come up with a different word, a different principle other than competition. Competition doesn't explain this well enough. This principle is dominance. Man, he wants men to be dominant. Oh, he's so toxic. It's pretty high. It's pretty high up on the toxicity scale. There Will Be Blood, I'd probably give it like a 9 out of 10 on the toxicity scale, because I forgot his name, the actual character's name, but Daniel Day-Lewis, he wants to dominate and crush his competition. Okay, he doesn't want to just beat them. He wants them to be annihilated. He wants them to go out of business. He wants to do everything short of actually killing him. And maybe he does try to kill him at some point, but he wants to completely dominate him in the business world. And that's a fire. That's a fire that it can go too far, but I think every man needs to have a fire in them for something. You have to feel compelled to do something to that degree where you're a ravenous lion. You're not going to stop. You're going to go after it. You don't care. You want to crush, dominate. That's why sports is so popular, okay? Because guys, they have that urge to dominate and to crush. And you can do that in a safe, acceptable, societal, accepted by society through sports, okay? Because you can, tackle a guy, win the Super Bowl, get the most home runs, whatever it is, okay? You can become dominant in sports. You can become dominant in business. And you can become dominant on a micro scale, just in your own personality over the people in your life. That doesn't mean you're like trying to crack the whip on everyone that you're with, but it means, you're a leader. You're a beacon of indomitable force. That you're just going to move forward through life. You can't be stopped. Now, whether you're aimed at a negative or positive direction, I'm not making, I'm trying to give a moral compass. I'm just saying you got to have some dominance in some area of your life. Professionally, sports, physically. Are you going to be the guy that bench presses the most at the gym? You going to show off? You can do that, okay? You just dominate the weights, whatever. And purpose. Again, I'm bringing this one back. This was also in the number 1. But purpose. because that is his life. That is it. His purpose is set. There's no questioning. He doesn't wake up and question, oh, what am I doing? Is this really what I want to do? He just wakes up, a machine goes forward, turns on, forward, off, on, forward. Doesn't stop. That's it. Just one direction. Full of purpose. And if you don't feel like you have purpose, then maybe get off social media for a while and try to find something. Explore. Because you need it. Otherwise, you turn into a dirty socialist who does nothing with his life aside from yelling at other people, telling them that they're oppressing him. That's a boring life, guys. You don't want to do that. And number 10, not the most toxic, but actually, considering the principle, this could be the most toxic. 300. Stereotypical masculine movie, yes, but I'm not talking about this because of the physicality of the guys and the violence and the blood and the gore and all that happened in the movie. I'm going a little deeper with the principles here, okay? So the patriotism. That's principle number 1 from movie 300. That's toxic enough. Just the word patriotism to get me kicked off of YouTube right there. Like just saying that word, that's enough to get me kicked off of YouTube. Because patriotism, that's the same as nationalism. That's the same as racism, basically, right? You're white nationalist, you're a white supremacist. Joking about idiots who don't understand definitions of any words aside, the soldiers in 300 march to their certain death because they have a sense of patriotism, because they want to defend their country. They know they're going to die. There's 300 guys going to fight an army of like 50,000. They know exactly what's going to happen. They leave knowing that's what's going to happen. But the sense of patriotism is so strong. It's the same reason why, these kids, they're so fervent about enlisting in the military and going to serve in the military and fight in the military. I don't agree with that necessarily anymore because, you're not defending us from an invasion. There's no invasion that's going to happen of America. If you're in the military today, you're more of like an empire building corporation. But all that aside, they still feel a sense of patriotism where they want to go and serve their country. And that's what these soldiers, the 300 soldiers, Leonidas and his 300, that's what they embodied. And potentially one of the most important principles of the entire list of masculine traits, discipline. Okay? Every guy has to have discipline. The soldiers, to become a soldier in Sparta, you had to, well, if you go by the comic and the movie, they were killing babies who they deemed weren't even physically fit enough to become a soldier. They would throw babies down into the pit and to just die because they knew they weren't going to be good enough just by looking at them. So if you were lucky enough to survive that choice, that filter, then from a young child you were thrown into combat with superiors trained in physical combat, survival. Your final test was to be thrown out into the wilderness to fight rabid wolves. And if you made it back to town, then you passed the test. That was your final test to prove that you were able to become a soldier of Sparta and serve your country. So to get through all of that, you have to have an incredible level of discipline. You think those guys that come back from being attacked by wolves in the wild, do you think they care about being misgendered or a 2-cent wage gap or all this other stuff that everyone's complaining about these days? It doesn't really matter. No, they don't care. No, because they're mentally superior. They're not going to let all these small, stupid things get to them. Somebody talk trash to them on Twitter. They're not going to break down crying. Oh, I talked trash to a celebrity on Twitter, and then he retweeted me and got 80,000 people to comment me back. Oh, please stop. I made a false rape allegation against P. Diddy or whoever it was, and now he wants to sue me. I'm only 20 years old. Please don't. like stuff like that. Did you see that, by the way? That was terrible. It wasn't P. Diddy. I don't know who it was. It was Chris Brown. That's who it was, yeah. But the point is, to make it in this world, you're going to go through some stuff. And you have to have discipline to get through that, but also to become competent at things. To get that toughness, you have to have discipline. To be competitive, you have to have discipline. To seek truth and to have purpose, you have to have discipline. Because, I always hear about guys, they're like, oh man, how do you stay motivated to go to the gym 3 days a week or 5 days a week? And we're coming off of the drop off from the New Year's resolutioners who are going to the gym. So we're getting a lot of that now. I see a lot of this, people dropping off out of the gym. Oh, I can't stay motivated. Here's a secret. You don't need motivation if you have discipline. Okay? I'm not motivated to go to the gym. I'm never motivated to go to the gym. I have to go to the gym in an hour. I don't want to go. I'm tired. I sat in traffic for an hour and a half on the way home because there was an accident. I practically fell asleep, and then I'd come do this. I'm not going to want to go to the gym, but I'm going anyway because I have discipline. I'm going to go regardless. Unless I break my leg, I'm going. So that's what discipline looks like. And if you want to achieve anything in life, you got to have some of that. So that's my top 10 list of toxically masculine movies. I'm going to make this more concise. I'm going to go through this again in a shorter video so that I can make that, outside of the stream. I'm going to make a separate video for this, but I think it's a pretty good list. I got a suggestion on here for They Live. Maybe I'll have to watch that again. Maybe I could squeeze it in here somewhere on the list. It's definitely got some undertones of, the propaganda and all that kind of stuff in there, but I'm not sure how that relates to toxic masculinity. Basically, I want to give this list to someone after they watch the Gillette commercial and after they see that little Covington kid get attacked for being a white male, and I want them to get, recharged, right? Oh, yeah, I remember, this is what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to, quiver in fear of going to talk to girls on the street and be held back and not play violent video games and also there's stupid stuff that the Gillette commercial had in there, for example. So yeah, look for that, and that's all I had. If you guys think of anything else, drop it in the comments below. Maybe I'll throw it in the video. And I'm starting to get some questions. I think next week I'm going to do a Q&A from my email. People are sending me emails with questions and stuff now, which is cool. If you guys have questions or anything like that, if you have a topic you want me to cover, shoot it to my email, weeklynarrativeca@gmail.com, and we'll go over that. So I'm going to do that next week. We'll go over a couple questions from the email, some viewer feedback, and maybe we'll open up the Discord. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next weekly narrative. Predator, that's a good one. Thanks, Echo. I'll see you later, buddy.